Election 2024 is over. America has voted, and both sexism and racism have won the day. On Liberal Dan Radio, we will hold everyone accountable, from the media that failed to report the threat that Trump poses to this nation, to the people who supported him. We will pick up the mantle to educate the people about his actions, from being dictator on day one, pardoning January 6th domestic terrorists, implementing Project 2025, and any other draconian measures he tries to pass. And now, the resistance begins. Open them up. They'll be 562-542-3261 or 562-LibDan1. You can call in and rant, comment, debate, whatever you want to do. We welcome all comers. Otherwise, you can leave your comments and questions in the chat, either at liberaldanradio.com or twitch.tv/liberaldanradio. We have a bunch of stuff to talk about today, but first and foremost, let's say hello first to all of our people who joined in at the beginning of the show. We got Aaron, one half of the Mod Squad. We've got Steve from across the pond.
If it's no Scottish, it's crap!
We've got Josh, Jan, Jeff. So we got Jeff from just north of Uranus, but most of the J Squad is here already. Mad Max, Slava Ukraini, indeed. Absolutely. We got Orvillaby and Aaron over in the Twitch chat as well. Glad to see everybody stopping on by to the less viewed Wednesday show. Anyway, trying to have good humor about it, right? So lots of stuff to talk about. I'll probably want to talk about this at least one more time before, although actually no, I think, Roxanne, is it you who watches Deep Space Nine? That we're binging Deep Space Nine, or am I confusing it with somebody else? Because, it's a good thing. First of all, hey, Roxanne, how are you? But I have, I'm working on a big novel, like a long, full-length novel. But I have had a piece of a very short story, published in another book, like a compilation of short stories, and that was about Star Trek: The Next Generation. Oh, Suzanne watches Deep Space Nine. Okay, see, I had Suzanne on my notes saying that Suzanne was the one who watched it, and then I just I was like, was it Roxanne or Suzanne? I don't know. But yes, yeah, okay, so it's Suzanne. But we'll bring if Suzanne swings by, we'll bring it up again. So the first book that I got published in was a compilation of short stories based on Star Trek: The Next Generation. And then I got asked again to do another short story for a compilation of short stories on Deep Space Nine. And that is, the pre-sale of that book is going live tomorrow. So if you would like a copy of the book, hey, Olami over on Twitch, thank you. Hey, Chad, thank you so much, appreciate you. Thank you for $10 for the novel. If I will share the link on my social media channels for if you wanted to buy it directly and just have a copy of a book. I mean, I get nothing from the sale of the book. It's just supporting the publishing company that does it, because they paying all the people to that little bit of money for each short story is not, wouldn't be, I wouldn't expect it anyway. And I think they donate proceeds to charity. However, if you do want a signed copy of the book, I will sign it and send it along to you. And granted, mine is just one in many stories, but if you want a signed copy of the book, I'll figure out a way. Probably email me, liberaldanradio@gmail.com, and we can work out how we can get that accomplished, and what little extra I'll have to throw on there to pay for things like shipping and stuff like that, and whatever. Maybe make a couple of bucks extra off of it just for signing the book. But anyway, I actually have copies of the old one as well if you want that too. So you can get a twofer if you really wanted to. But yes. Anyway, so what else? I'm trying to figure out if that person is, legit or not over on Twitch. Anyway, so what else are we going to talk about today? Smaller side of the news. Pete Rose and Shoeless Joe Jackson had their lifetime bans removed so that eventually they could be eligible to be placed into baseball's Hall of Fame. Now, Pete Rose's record of most career hits is in the Hall of Fame, so you can't have the Hall of Fame without Pete Rose's name being listed as the top hits leader. But there's a lot of people who complain about whether or not Pete Rose should or shouldn't be inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame in Cooperstown, and there are arguments to be made on each side. Hey, Mad Mac, thank you for gifting the 5 memberships. Appreciate you. I got Trucker John got it. One Vision, Molly, Krista, Nerd Misha. A bunch of regulars got that. So thank you so much, Mad Mac, for the gift of the memberships. He's never been accused of betting against his own team. I don't know if there was any attempts by him to do things like point shaving, like, oh, we're going to win by such and such and not anymore, so therefore we're not going to score more runs than we need to in order for me to win the bet. I don't know if that happened with referees in the NBA. So I don't know if that happened. But I guess technically, if you're speaking, Pete Rose had a lifetime ban from entering the Baseball Hall of Fame, and he's dead now, so his lifetime is finished, and therefore maybe it's justification to allow him to be in the Hall of Fame. But I don't know. It's not a huge big deal either way if it happens. There are definitely other people who might not make it to the Hall of Fame that maybe should. Some people argue against Barry Bonds being able to make it into the Hall of Fame because of the steroid issue. But if you look at Barry Bonds' career from before he started bulking up, he still had a Hall of Fame caliber career well before that. Now he had to go ruin it by taking all the performance enhancers, supposedly. But there will be arguments to be made there as well. There are some people who would say that they're not going to vote for anybody who played during that era because they don't like how people were allowed to play with those play with their numbers and play while using performance enhancing substances. Like Mark McGwire never got caught doing anything that was against baseball's rules, but when they banned the one particular substance that he was using to help him, be better, he then decided to retire. So, there you go. But, then those people ended up being hypocrites. Why? Because they still voted for people like Ichiro and other people. Now, this is not to say that Ichiro doesn't deserve to be in the Hall of Fame. He absolutely does. But if you're not going to vote for anybody because you disagree with how baseball handled it, you can't then go vote for people. Anyway. Hey, Big Hook, good to see you. Hey, Jolie, good to see you as well. It's been years ago, Shoeless Joe's bat was on eBay, had to put $10,000 deposit just to be able to bid for it. That's nuts. That is crazy. But yeah, Shoeless Joe Jackson again, one of the other ones because of their scandal with throwing the World Series way back in the day. Now, he's long dead. But, it happens, and it's just an interesting bit of tidbit. And
It is what it is.
Thank you, Donald. Anyway, so there's that. But again, main point, he had a lifetime ban, but since Pete Rose is dead, maybe that's justification enough to let him back in. So he never actually gets to see it, but they honor the purse. They easy for me to say, honor Charlie Hustle, even though he had a side hustle of gambling. Let's see. The year McGwire set the home run record, I went to about a dozen games, never saw him hit a foul ball. He's a good player. And then his forearms were larger than my legs, but he's a good player. And yeah, he hit the ball straight and he hit the ball hard. And I remember I was talking to someone. I think I was waiting tables at Bennigan's. Like, this memory is still clear. I remember telling people that year that I bet that Mark McGwire hit 70 home runs. And they're like, no, he's not going to hit 70 home runs. That's never going to happen. I should have, woulda, shoulda, coulda. I should have bet the money. I was like, I should have just put like $100 down and be like, Mark McGwire at the beginning of the season, he's going to hit 70 home runs. And then I would have won the bet because he hit exactly 70 home runs. Of course, Sammy Sosa beat the Roger Maris record first. He got to 66, but then Mark McGwire just shot right past him. It was a very exciting summer of baseball with that going on. Again, anyway, I think he homered in every game I was not at. That's funny. Yeah, that sucks. Like, I remember going to several, Cal Ripken games or whatever, and Orioles games, and seeing Cal Ripken or whatever. I did not get to see him break the consecutive games streak, i.e. 21-31, in person, but I did make sure to go watch it. I think I was a freshman in college at that point, and when he surpassed 21-31, I did make sure to go down to the bar at our university tavern or whatever and make sure that I was able to watch it and, cheer on my local hometown hero. McGwire played for the A's and he played for Cardinals? I think he played for the Cardinals as well. He played for two different teams, I think. Anyway. We're not going to be talking too much about baseball, though. Just, I do like baseball. I'm a baseball fan. I don't get to watch it as much as I'd like, but every time there's a little interesting tidbits to discuss, we'll discuss it. So, anyway, again, lots of stuff to talk about today, including RFK Jr. We are going to start the show discussing RFK Jr. And we are not going to watch the entire session that took place. I think this clip that we're about to watch has the clip that I want to talk about, i.e. Not to listen to him on matters of health, but let's go ahead and we are going to watch this clip and do some reactions to it and see how it goes, shall we?
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Secretary Kennedy, I want to talk to you about your relationship with this committee and this Congress. I want to talk to you about...
Are they dating? Are they in a commitment? Is it a situationship?
About the statements that you made to the chairman of this committee and to members...
And, chairman of the committee is Senator Bill Cassidy from the state of Louisiana, who happens to be a doctor. And he had some minor concerns, apparently, about whether or not he would vote for RFK Jr. to lead the Department of Health, specifically based on his feelings on vaccines and, whether or not people should take them or whether or not people should be forced to take them. And he was given assurances and promises that he would, have at least conversations with Bill Cassidy about this. And I said back then that Bill Cassidy is one of the biggest fools in the world if he believed anything that RFK Jr. said about vaccines and having a good vaccine policy. There's no assurances there. There was no, we're going to remove you from office, because once he's in there, you'd have to impeach him or something. So anyway, let's continue.
Members of this committee during your confirmation hearing about vaccines, you didn't tell the truth. I find that to be really dangerous for our relationship. If I were the chairman who believes in vaccines and voted for you because he believed what you said about supporting vaccines, my head would be exploding. In the hearing, you told...
That would make a real big mess all over the Senate chambers, and that would just not be a good thing. But, same point that I just made.
Told us, quote, I will not work to impound, divert, or otherwise reduce any funding appropriated by Congress for the purpose of vaccination programs. That's not the truth. You've done exactly. Let me finish my question.
Yeah, I didn't hear what you said. I'm just asking you to repeat it so I can.
He didn't hear what he said. What are you doing? I mean, is the brain worm just, has it made its way to the ear? Is it eating its way around, the eardrums and taking that out as well? I mean, were you just looking at your phone and not paying attention to what the senator was asking you?
I can understand your question.
During the hearing, I'll repeat it. During the hearing, you said to this committee and to the Finance Committee, I will not work to impound, divert, or otherwise reduce funding appropriated by Congress for the purpose of vaccination programs. That is not what happened. You've done the opposite. You canceled $12 billion in grants to the states, including my state, that are used to administer and track vaccines. You promised Chairman Cassidy.
When did I do that?
Madam Chair, would you allow me to finish my question?
Keep going with your question.
When did I do that?
Let me finish my question.
Accusation. Just tell me when I did it so I can understand what the question is.
You have canceled $12 billion in public health grants to states, whether you know.
And, he claims that he doesn't do it, but again, maybe the brainworm just kind of got that part of the memory that he doesn't remember anything he does. Or maybe he has a new brainworm because he was swimming in the crap water near Washington, D.C. with his grandkids. Anybody who allowed their kids to swim in that should have their kids taken away from them. Let's just say that, because you are endangering your children, your grandchildren, or whatever. That is endangerment of their health. And this is the guy that's the head of the Department of Health.
Know this or not, that funding is used by the states in part to be able to administer and dispense information about vaccines. Mr. Secretary, let me give you the full panoply of
accusations,
the things you said before this committee that didn't turn out to be true. You also.
That's typical MAGA actions, though. Deny and deflect. So that's what MAGA does. That's what Trump does. That's what Caroline Leavitt does. That's what all of them do. They deny, and then they deflect, and then they play whataboutisms or whatever.
Promised Chairman Cassidy that the FDA would not change vaccine standards from, quote, historical norms. But what happened as soon as you were sworn in? You announced new standards for vaccine approvals that you proudly referred to in your own press release as a radical departure from current practice, and experts say that departure will delay approvals. You also said, specific to the measles vaccine, that you support the measles vaccine, but you have consistently been undermining the measles vaccine. You told the public that the vaccine wanes very quickly. You went on the Dr. Phil show and said that the measles vaccine was never fully tested for safety. You said there's fetal debris in the measles vaccine. And
let's talk about the fetal debris thing for a second, shall we? Because this is a common thing and a common misunderstanding by conservatives, MAGA types, even before MAGA was a thing. These people believed that there were fetal remains in all sorts of different things, in Tylenol, in Pepsi, and now in vaccines. These people believe that, these fetal remains, like these stem cell lines that come from aborted fetuses back in the 70s. These stem cell lines are used in research. They're used in, development of products like Pepsi. They're used in development of products like Tylenol or whatever painkiller was used, maybe all of them. And they're used, I guess, in the creation of the MMR vaccine. I think specifically the rubella portion, if I'm remembering that correctly. Now, what they don't understand, what these poorly educated folks don't understand, or willfully ignorant folks don't understand when they say that, especially, R.F. Kennedy Jr., who's irresponsibly pushing these things, is this. Just because you use stem cells from, stem cell lines that are from way back in the 70s that were created from aborted fetuses, just because you're using that in your research, just because you're using that for testing of the item or whatever it is that you're developing, it doesn't mean that the product that you sell contains those stem cells. Stem cells are not an ingredient to the product. They were used for testing the product. But these poorly educated, willfully ignorant, ill-informed idiots can't grasp that simple concept. And if you can't grasp that simple concept, you A, shouldn't be having a conversation about this, or shouldn't even be discussing this issue. You have no business discussing any issue pertaining to those things. Furthermore, you also shouldn't be the head of the Department of Health of this country. Health and Human Services. You should not be in charge of that if you don't understand how stem cells are used, embryonic stem cell lines are used in the development and testing of a product. And that doesn't mean, again, that you have those stem cells in the drink when you in a Pepsi, or in the Tylenol or whatever drugs used, or in the vaccine. Anyway, let's continue.
This morning.
All true. All true.
This morning.
And he says all true. He goes, this is all true, that you absolutely have fetal remains in your vaccines that you that get injected into your body. That is not true. He is either purposefully lying to mislead the MAGA supporters because they want to hear that and they want to, have their cognitive biases fed, or he really is that big of an idiot and the brain worm has taken up more room in his skull than the actual brain itself because it's full, and he actually believes that BS. I'd say it's about 50-50 as to whether or not he's just that stupid or if he's just that dishonest. And maybe it's a little bit of column A and a little bit of column B. So, Mad Mac, he has fecal remains in his body. Well, absolutely, he definitely has fecal remains in his body after swimming in that creek or whatever it was in D.C. I would be much more worried about the fecal remains there. I mean, holy crap. And his kids, unfortunately, or his grandkids, will have those fecal remains in him as well. Ugh.
Do you want me to lie to the public?
That's not.
No, we don't want you to lie to the public. We want you to stop lying to the public.
None of that is.
Of course it's true. Of course it's true, Senator. Senator, begging your progress. You do not know what you're talking about.
The look of this guy is just like, what? Why am I here? Why am I right behind this fool?
Submit for the record.
Let's have a little bit of order so that you can get
Madam
your
Chair,
question
I'm
and we
speaking.
can get
I didn't
this
ask. I didn't ask for a response yet.
I understand
I'd like
that.
to lay out the predicate of my question before I'm interrupted by the witness. He should
Go
have some
ahead.
respect for this committee.
Go ahead.
Just this morning in front of the House of Representatives, you also said that you, in fact, would not recommend that kids get vaccinated for measles. You said you would just lay out the pros and cons. Okay, so this is
the pros and cons. Pros, you protect yourself from getting measles, and you protect other people from getting measles. The cons, there are none, unless you happen to be one of the few people who a doctor would legitimately say are incapable of taking a vaccine. And as such, the additional pro is that, you need the help of those other people to protect you. That's that second pro, protecting other people. But again, MAGA conservatives and idiots like RFK Jr. don't give a crap about protecting others. They don't feel it's their responsibility. That's why you saw all their actions during the pandemic, because your health is your responsibility. I am not my brother's keeper. In other words, let's continue.
the summation of everything that you have said to compromise people's faith in the measles vaccine in particular is contrary to what you said before this committee. You said you support the measles vaccine, but then you have laid out a set of facts that are contested, and I will submit information for the record from experts who contest what you've said about the vaccine. And
he says contest, not can test. He said it a little weird, but just want to make sure that that's clear.
The result is to undermine faith in the vaccine. It's kind of like saying, listen, I think you should swim in that lake, but the lake is probably toxic and there's probably a ton of snakes and alligators in that lake, but I think you should swim in it. No.
It's not the snakes and the alligators that are toxic. It's the frickin' poo that's being, flowing into that, body of water that him and his family were swimming in.
Nobody's going to swim in that lake if that's what you say. And so I want you to acknowledge that when you say...
Unfortunately, though, there was a big sign that says, don't swim here. You can get sick. And he didn't listen to that either. He's setting the example of don't listen to government when they tell you to do stuff. What a great example.
You support the measles vaccine and then go out and repeatedly undermine the vaccine with information that is contested by public health experts, that is not supporting the vaccine. And so I guess I have two simple questions for you. One is,
I'm sure he is going to make the answers to those simple questions. He'll be either making them complex or he won't even understand them. But again, I haven't watched the whole thing. I've just seen clips. I haven't watched this whole segment. I've just seen little bits and pieces of it. So let's continue.
can you clarify what you said in the House this morning? Are you or are you not recommending that families get their children vaccinated, or are you just giving people the pros and cons? And do you understand that when you say these things...
Do you understand? The immediate answer to that should be no. Don't ask him if he understands anything, because he doesn't. If he thinks that fetal remains are in the MMR vaccine, he doesn't.
About the measles vaccine, what ends up happening is less people get the vaccine. That may be what you want, but do you understand that the result of constantly questioning the efficacy or safety of the vaccine results in less people getting the vaccine? So I don't necessarily...
Fewer. I don't know why English is so stupid. If we want to say that there is a higher number of something, it doesn't matter if it's countable or not. We say more. But if it's not countable, you say less. If it's countable, you say fewer. English is so stupid. Anyway, let's continue.
Necessarily want to spend the remaining 20 seconds in an argument over this.
See, and here's the thing. I will criticize Democrats too. See, I'm criticizing his language, his use of words. I'm being a grammar Nazi.
Science, but do you at least understand that that's the consequence of what you're saying? And are you actually...
Do you understand that's the consequence? No, he does not. I'll answer that for you, Senator.
Still recommending people get the vaccine, or are you not?
Senator, if I advised you to swim in a lake that I knew there to be alligators in, wouldn't you want me to tell you there were alligators in it?
So are you recommending the measles vaccine or not?
What I've said and what I said...
It doesn't sound like you are, if that's...
Are you going to let me answer? Are you going to keep interrupting?
Are you or are you not?
Are you going to let me answer? What I pledged before this committee during my confirmation is that I would tell the truth, that I would have radical...
And you have not. If you're going to say that fetal remains are in... Now, he might not be lying. There's one thing about, Chris Murphy. Now, he said that RFK Jr. is lying. And again, I'll be nitpicky about this too. If RFK Jr. really believes that there are fetal remains in the vaccines that you take, it's a false statement. But if he believes it, it's not a lie. It's still a false statement. And he's still an idiot for saying it. And he has no business being in charge of the Department of Health if he believes that, because there's plenty of information out there for him to educate himself as to why. But technically, it's not a lie. It's just a falsehood. Anyway, let's continue.
Transparency. I'm going to tell the truth about everything we know and we don't know about vaccines.
Are you recommending the measles vaccine or not?
I am not going to just tell people everything is safe and effective if I know that there's issues. I need to respect people's intelligence.
I think you're answering the question.
He has to respect people's intelligence when he has none. I mean, I guess, you should respect people's intelligence, but you should actually respect the intelligence of the experts who are telling you that you're full of shit.
I think you're answering the reason that's really dangerous for the American public and for families.
The reason people have lost faith in this program is because they've been lied to by public officials for year after year after year.
No longer recommending the measles vaccine.
Senator Marshall.
Anyway, so there's that. There's that lovely little bit of video. Of course, that piece of video did not include the one thing where he says, you should not listen to me on issues of health. In that committee hearing, he also said, you should not listen to me on matters of health. I'm sorry. Aren't you the head of the Department of Health and Human Services? Aren't you the person that we should be able to listen to and trust when it comes to issues of health? No? I mean, that just goes to show you what we all knew well before his confirmation, that he had no business serving in that position. That he's a quack, he's a kook, and he's completely and horribly misinformed. And he's dangerous, especially with, wanting to make an entire registry of people who, have autism or who are autistic. He's dangerous. And as Senator Murphy said, his constantly putting doubt or allowing the doubts that other people have to be cultured and like a culture where you test for strep or whatever, like, and it grows in that culture. His doing that is making it unsafe for children in this country, because now we have people who are dying, kids who are dying in this country because their parents listen to quacks like that and then don't get their kids vaccinated with a vaccine that's proven to be safe and effective. And then when those kids get it, it creates vectors of transmission for other people to get it. And that's how we get epidemics. That's how we get pandemics. That's how people get sick and die. That's why we have, or had, hundreds of thousands of needless deaths during the Trump administration, during the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic. Because he enabled those lies about that vaccine and the virus and social distancing and masking to be perpetuated. And by doing so, it put others at needless risk. So again, what do you think? Do you agree with RFK Jr. That there are fetal remains in vaccines? Are you just going to double down on being wrong, or do you think that RFK Jr. has absolutely no business serving in the Department of Health, and his recent statements just solidify that fact? Anyway, leave your comments down below. Remember to like the video, share, subscribe to the channel, and unless you're a Nazi or agree with RFK Jr. on the whole MMR vaccine thing, have a good day. Yeah, anyway. Hey, it's Suzanne. Suzanne is here. So, Suzanne, we're going to go back to the comment to the topic that we were talking about for a second. I have something for you. Just you might be interested. You might be interested in it more than anybody else. Let's see. But first of all, let's see. 250 kiloohms, fully glycinated, cooked. RFK, like all Trump appointed, are there to destroy the agencies they occupy. Exactly. Let's see what else was said in the chat before I get to the comment. Yeah, Jan Morgan, making America as white as possible. We'll be getting into that in a second. Let's see. Hey, all you Danners, all the Danimals, some pure blown crazy today in the political world. Do you see the female Republican senator passed out of session? No, I missed that. That's the thing. I didn't have much stuff to talk about, as of yesterday. I had a couple of things I wanted to talk about, but as of yesterday, I didn't have much. And then I just got a page of stuff, just from stuff from today. This is why I would love to be able to do the show 5 days a week, but I can't justify doing it 5 days a week if I only have, 1.1 thousand viewers, while other people have much more who started after me. But whatever. We'll get into more reasons as to why more people should be listening to Liberal Dan Radio Talk from the Left, That's Right in a little bit, because there are lots of things today that I was right on that, including the RFK Jr. thing. There are plenty of things that I was right on that if people are shocked about these things now, clearly they needed to be listening to Liberal Dan Radio Talk from the Left, That's Right, for a very long time, and they haven't been doing so. Let's see. Using the phony veneer of Christianity to justify brutal policies, making queer people invisible, reconfiguring the schools for indoctrination, having malicious terrorists terrorize minorities. Exactly. That's all part of the plan. That's a feature to the MAGA idiots, not a bug. Why would their parents allow him to take the kids to swim in a cesspool? Does he have a diving board over a septic tank? Well, I mean, what's the difference? 6 of one, half dozen of the other, right? Big Hook, pretty much the steps for withdrawing from the Age of Enlightenment and back in the era where thinking and methodology of the Dark Ages. America is going backwards. The shining city on the hill is on fire. Unfortunately, we are, and, we don't have enough firemen to put it out. See, Mad Max, the rap music from Mexico. Have a guy from Mexico working on my shipping department once, and while he plays Mexican rap music, not bad if you like rap. Does he play Gasolina a lot? Because I think that's a catchy one. Let's see. Bad Bunny. Bad Bunny is Puerto Rican, not Mexican. Anyway, let's continue with that one. Let's see. Quacks like that should never accept positions they know damn well they're unqualified for. Well, but that's why they're quacks. Con artists, shysters, whatever words you want to use to describe them. That's why they are in those positions, and that's why Trump puts them there too, because he's a quack and a shyster and a grifter and wants people who are going to be able to implement his things to make America dumb again. So there was something in the news about Bad Bunny leaving maggots and now talking about what how horrible GQP is. I think it was Boston Brian. Maybe. Why does the poo need to be next to the heart? I don't know. Why do I don't even want to go there. Why is the waste disposal facility so close to the theme park? Anyway, Suzanne, if you're still here, hello, Suzanne. What I talked about earlier, I know you watched Star Trek: Deep Space Nine, and this might be more interesting to you than to anybody else. I have a short story that was already published in a anthology book where people put like 800-word short stories about every single episode of Star Trek: Deep Space Nine, and so, that was a fun thing to do. And then I was asked by the same publisher, by the same editor, to write one for Deep Space Nine. So I was able to pick one of my favorite episodes of Deep Space Nine, which is Trials and Tribulations, where they kind of go back in time and they deal with the Kirk episode of The Trouble with Tribbles and add some more chicanery to it. And so I wrote an 800-word short story about that particular episode, and I actually managed to fit in Lower Decks as well. So if you've not watched Lower Decks, you might want to watch a little bit of Lower Decks too, whilst doing that, because Lower Decks is great. It's a cartoon, but it's great. It's really funny. That being said, tomorrow the pre-orders start. So I'm going to be sharing a link to the pre-order page once it happens. I'll be sending a link to the pre-order page just so anybody who wants to order it and and I get nothing if you order it from there. However, if you do want a signed copy of the book, I will order extra copies, and we'll work it out in such a way so that I'll get you that copy shipped. I'll probably send it media rate. If we're shipping within, I guess, the 48 continental United States, outside the country, I don't know how well that would work, but we'll see. Jolie, that's your favorite DS9 episode. Well, there you go. And I've managed to include it as part of an existing Lower Decks episode. So if you like Lower Decks, you'll probably appreciate it even more. Like in the first story that I did, which was I was able to do I, Borg, which was a story about them finding a solo Borg drone and then finding out that once he's separated from the collective that he starts getting a personality or whatever. And I made the story about I, Borg into a piece of Firefly fan fiction. So if you're interested in how I do that, again, I do have extra copies of that book for sale as well. And if you want a signed copy of it, there is also other copies of that book as well. You'll probably be able to buy that as well from the same site if you want to if you don't care about the autograph, then you could just buy it directly from the site. I'm not trying to make a whole bunch of money off of it and everything. I am trying to make a whole bunch of money off of my full-ass novel that I'm trying to write. But anyway, if you're interested, I will be posting information on my social media platforms, like on Facebook.com/LiberalDanRadio. I'll probably make a post about it on LiberalDan.com, even though I hardly ever post there. Because nobody ever goes, and then also I'll put it on probably Twitter, on Blue Sky, etc. So anyway, just wanted to let you know. Say penetrate. That is a very clever Deep Space Nine episode. Yes, it is. But anyway, I love the fact that there are multiple people who love that episode because that's one of my favorites as well. I actually got there was a VHS box set that included the original TOS episode, The Trouble with Tribbles, and the DS9 episode, Trials and Tribulations, and it was like a plastic cage, and inside the plastic cage was a Tribble that if you threw it, it actually made noise. Drove the people that I played games with crazy when I would pull that crap out. But, anyway, so Jolie, well, here's the deal. I'll talk to you, Jolie. I'll talk to you and Aaron about this later. How about that? I'll talk to y'all about that later. If you know, I don't know if Aaron's back yet, but we'll see. Anyway, so what do we want to talk about next? Let's go back to the main show image first, and then we'll talk about, I guess, we'll be talking about MAGA DEI later, because MAGA, you know, is basically doing identity politics more than any left, progressive, liberal, whatever, Democrat I've ever seen. So, Jolie, well, see, we were meant to be friends, Jolie. We both have matching tribbles. Anyway, so, but before we talk about that, let's talk about before we talk about the whole Qatar hero issue. Let's talk about Chinese investors investing in Trump's meme coin. So, GD Culture Group, a small technology company that only hires about 8 people. I think 8 people is what this article says, are the amount of people that are employed by this company. And they make short videos for TikTok. That's what they do. And the company recorded 0 revenue last year. But it announced that a mysterious stock sale would allow it to invest in Trump's meme coin. Trump planned 2 lavish cryptocurrency-focused dinners, one of which cost a whooping $1.5 million to attend, has raised the alarms of ethicists who caution that his endeavors with his meme coin and crypto company, World Liberty Financial, could pose a conflict of interest. GD Culture Group, which is traded on NASDAQ, said it would spend $300 million on a stockpile of Bitcoin and Trump coin, or whatever it's called. It would be paid for using funds from a mysterious stock sale to an unnamed entity in the British Virgin Islands, a popular tax haven. The purchase would directly fill the pockets of Trump's family, as around 80% of the meme coin supply is controlled by the Trump Organization and affiliates. The regulation of digital assets is in its nascency, but rather than divest his crypto assets to avoid conflict of interests, President Trump has positioned himself to maximize profiting from them by adopting a less aggressive regulatory enforcement program than his predecessor. The morally questionable purchase also comes at a time when Trump is trying to reach a deal that will allow TikTok to continue operating. GD Culture Group, for its part, said it hoped the purchase would enhance the balance sheet with high-performance, scalable digital assets. Any purchase by the group, however, would be the first known instance of a China-linked firm buying Trump's meme coin. Now, people are pretending that they're all shocked. Oh my goodness, they're all shocked at the fact that Donald Trump would do this, that this is a thing, that he's selling these meme coins to these outside investors, and this is a way for foreign investors to have influence, you know, without having to be paid registered lobbyists. You know, like Pam Bondi was a lobbyist for Qatar. You know, they don't need registered lobbyists to lobby Congress or to lobby the federal government when you can just buy Trump meme coin or whatever, his Trump coin or whatever it's called. You could buy that and then gain influence directly from Trump because you are a now Trump coin investor. Who could have possibly warned anybody about this grift and the possibility that Donald Trump would use these sort of things in order, you know, to enrich himself and to enable himself to be have his campaign funded and also have, you know, just money coming into him from people who typically wouldn't be able to donate to campaigns and who shouldn't be having that much influence on the president of the United States. I'll tell you who said that. I said that. Rose said it too. I said that specifically. And I said that during the election. I said when Donald Trump came up with his Trump watches, or the concept of a watch, because the website clearly said that the watches may or may not be made. It was kind of like a Kickstarter watch thing or whatever. There was no promise of delivery. You were just being able to buy a Trump watch or Trump sneakers or Trump Bibles or any of the other grifts that he comes up with. And this would be a way that rich, wealthy whatever folks from other countries, especially ones that are, our enemies, and other ones that are also maybe not officially enemies, but are not trustworthy, to be able to have undue influence over the president of these United States. I said it back then. This is why more people need to listen to Liberal Dan Radio, talk from the left, that's right. Because I told everybody about this back during the campaign. But unfortunately, as some people have said, Liberal Dan Radio is the best podcast that you're not listening to. Well, not y'all, because y'all listen to it because y'all are watching. But many other people aren't. And the fact that there are people in the media who are now surprised and shocked about this, that they're now, oh my God, this is a way that Trump could... Yeah. Yes. We know. People who pay attention know. People who paid attention knew that Donald Trump was going to be able to get funds from foreign interests in violation or circumvention of our laws, whether they campaign finance laws or whether or not they're lobbying laws or whatever other laws might exist on the books. Emoluments clause, laws, all those sorts of things. Listen to Liberal Dan Radio, talk from the left, that's right. If you are a current listener of Liberal Dan Radio, you already knew this. Y'all are intelligent people. Y'all are well-informed people. But if you see anybody who is surprised about this, tell them where to go watch. Because if they would have watched this forward, they would have been informed. They would have known. Anyway, what do you think? Do you think that this is a cool, kosher way for Donald Trump to be, getting money and enriching himself on, the money of foreign investors, like millions of dollars from China? He says how China is bad, but now he's getting millions of dollars from China, from Chinese owned company, a tiny company, for his little made-up coin. You agree with him doing that? Or do you think it's, another one of his grifts that should be considered illegal and should be probably an impeachable offense, but, Congress Congress doesn't have the spine. They lack the spine to be able to do what's right when it comes to holding this president accountable and being an accurate and an active check on the power of the presidency. Regardless of how you feel, leave your comments down below. Remember to like the video, share, subscribe to the channel. Unless you're a Nazi or you're buying Trump's meme coin, have a good day. Trump copycat Gibson guitars. Yeah, that too. Yeah.
It is what it is.
Thank you, Donald. So you can't get Mogwai wet because they turn into gremlins. Something about tribbles too, but I can't remember. Yeah, if you feed tribbles, they start multiplying. That's what happens when you feed a tribble. They just start growing and multiplying and multiplying. There's a short episode with the guy that's the voice of Archer and also Bob from Bob's Burgers, where he plays the part of somebody who, inadvertently brought a tribble on board, and then the ship, they had to abandon the ship, and he was stuck on the ship with all the tribbles, and basically the tribbles overwhelmed the ship, and it crashed, and I think that's how the Klingons ended up having problems with the tribbles. But yes, don't feed tribbles. Thomas, hello, it's your child. Does the Captain America cup, lid, and straw go in the dishwasher? I would put the cup in the top shelf, as well as the lid, and I would put the straw is probably fine in the bottom shelf, but there you go, Thomas. Asking me questions in the middle of my podcast via my Twitch chat. You're welcome, Taz. That's funny. Scott Bakula was Archer. That's funny. Scott Bakula played the part of Captain Archer on Star Trek, on his own Star Trek show. I'm blanking on the frickin' name, and I feel like a bad nerd about this, but that's because I'm distracted. Anyway. But yes, you can't get a Mogwai wet because they turn into gremlins. And it's funny, if ever, does anybody know who... Enterprise, yes, Star Trek, of course it was Star Trek Enterprise. Brain fart, there you go. Anyway, but yeah, Scott Bakula played Captain Archer, but the voice of the guy from Bob's Burger and Archer the cartoon was on a short, like a Star Trek short that kind of gave you the history of how tribbles started being a nuisance. Anyway. So stupid. So I'm distracted by politics that I'm just, can't even remember the nerdy thing. Funnily enough, if you watch the Star Trek episode Yesterday's Enterprise, when they switch and it becomes, the Enterprise is at war with the Klingons or whatever. If you watch that episode, you'll see that the Enterprise and Captain Picard with the Enterprise D gave the Klingons a pasting at Archer 4. When they go back to the regular timeline after they saved the timeline, they were also still going to Archer 4 in that episode, and that's something I happened to pick up. And Archer 4, did they know back then that it was going to be named after Captain Archer? Who knows? Yes, Suzanne, Scott Bakula did NCIS New Orleans too. I've watched most of the NCIS episodes. I didn't start watching NCIS from the beginning, but I did watch all the other ones from the beginning, like Sydney, Los Angeles, Hawaii, and New Orleans. And one of the things, as we're getting off topic, one of the things that I found interesting, or confusing, I should say, from NCIS New Orleans, is they never addressed this that I recall. No other person does this particular thing that Scott Bakula's character would do. He would come into the office in the French Quarter of New Orleans. He would open up his cabinet, and then he would put his firearm, his service weapon, into the cabinet and close it and lock it. I've never seen an example of anybody else doing this on any other NCIS episode, ever. And it made me wonder, is this something that people do, or is this just a quirk of this particular thing, or is there a reason for this quirk? And they never really explained it. Anyway. Hey, Laura, good to see you. Thank you for popping in. Let's see. The Voyager is still one of my favorites. Voyager is really good. I'm not, I don't think I was as big on Voyager as the other ones, but anyway. Let's see, what is the topic I want to talk about next? So we talked about the Chinese crypto. Let's see. So, Donald Trump was talking about the new interim leader of Syria. Right? He was talking about the new interim leader of Syria in this clip right here. Let's see what old Donald has to say.
Young, attractive guy, tough guy.
So the head of Syria is a young, attractive, tough guy. He's talking about interim Syrian President Ahmad al-Shara. He spoke with him in Saudi Arabia or whatever. But let's go back to the video here.
Strong pass. Very strong pass fighter.
Does that work?
So he's young, he's attractive. I'm going to make Vladimir Putin jealous by talking about how hot and attractive he is. He would be one of the world leaders that could dominate me, and I would have no problem with it because I like being dominated by other world leaders that are not our allies.
Are you
But
at all?
he's got a real shot at pulling it together.
Do you think Syria will join the Abraham Accords?
Yeah, but I think they have to get themselves straightened out. I told him, I hope you're going to join when it's straightened out. He said yes. But they have a lot of work to do.
They have a lot of work to do. If President Obama started talking about the head of Syria, the interim president of Syria, and started calling him strong and attractive, you would never hear the end of it from the conservatives, from the Republican Party, from MAGA. They would say that he was kissing a foreign leader's ass. He was also over there saluting the Saudi Arabian general or something. You don't salute the Saudi Arabian. What are you doing? This guy has no idea what he's doing. And we elected him again. Well, we didn't elect him again, but they elected him again, and we're stuck with him. A meeting on the sidelines of Trump to get together with the leaders of Gulf Cooperation Council marks a major turn of events for Syria, still adjusting to life after 50 years of the Assad family, for its new leader who once had a $10 million U.S. bounty for his arrest because the United States used to consider President Ahmad al-Shara to be a terrorist. And now Donald Trump is cozying up to a nice. So again, we shouldn't be surprised, again, because Donald Trump invited Al-Qaeda and the Taliban, or whatever, to come to Camp David. he was going to host terrorists at Camp David. Like, if Obama did that, if Biden did that, they would have crapped more than bricks. But Trump does it. Oh, MAGA has no problem with it whatsoever. And then, of course, there's, the fact that he's getting a jet from Qatar. He's the Qatar hero. And the Trump supporters continue justifying this gift, or maybe both, because of the fact that they have no problem with what he's doing here. Some conservatives, Laura Loomer has said something, shockingly enough, that this would put a stain on the presidency. But I think even Ben Shapiro might have said something about it. I could be wrong about that. Maybe it was some other right-wing whack job who actually was a stopped clock on this issue. But, again, if they wanted to say, look, we'll buy this plane from you, we'll appropriate the funds, and we're not going to send the money to Boeing because Boeing is taking too long to make these planes. If they were going to say, we're going to buy this plane from you, and then go ahead and, fix it up like it would need to be fixed, then maybe it would be okay. But still, can you trust the plane that's coming from Qatar? That it's not going to be bugged? That it's not going to be unsafe for this president or whatever? And of course, Air Force One, whatever plane Air Force One is, goes from president to president to president to president. Not this one. Not this new flying palace. This new flying palace is going to go into the Trump library. Some people claim it's going to be mothballed, but I don't believe that. Anyway, so what do you think about Trump's ass-kissing of the new head of Syria? Do you think that it's presidential for him to do that, or do you think he's making a mockery of the Oval Office with all of the ways that he's cozying up to to people who are typically our rivals and people who were formerly terrorists? He loves domestic terrorists. He pardoned a whole bunch of them when he pardoned the J6ers. But, and he's alienating our allies too. He wants to dismantle NATO. MAGA folks want to leave NATO and help Putin. So now, do you agree with all of Trump's diplomatic, the ways he's reaching out diplomatically? Or do you think, again, he's making a mockery of this office? Leave your comments down below. Remember to like the video, share, subscribe to the channel. And unless you're a Nazi, have a good day. Marsha Jones, I thought MAGA was America first. They claim to be. But again, I called in to this episode of this show that's called Baldy and the Blonde, or Liberty or Lockdown. We're going to talk about Liberty or Lockdown in a second, too, because I have a commercial that plays all the time during this Liberty or Lockdown show. And we're going to be talking about that. But I called into that show, and I was basically like, I got them with me first. I said, you know how we have this, what was called the Patriot Act. And they labeled it the Patriot Act because they didn't want people to go against it, because if you go against it, you're not a patriot. But clearly, you can be opposed to the Patriot Act and still be a patriot to this country. In fact, I would say that if you're against the Patriot Act, you probably are more likely to be a Patriot Act than less likely. Not a guarantee, because there are people who are probably J6ers who do not support the Patriot Act. And they agreed with me. And I was like, good you agree with me. Same thing can be said about America First. Just because they claim that they're putting America first, it doesn't mean that they really are putting America first. Right? And I think I lost them at that point. So it's going to fly into the library. I think it might be, supposedly it's going to be, I don't know. They say it's going to be just left there and just be one thing on display. You have to have something to fill up the room, right? If it's the Trump library, if it's going to, Trump library is what? You're going to have like Mein Kampf in it, and that's about it. A couple of coloring books. A few Trump Bibles that went unsold. Right? Yeah. Anyway, so let's talk about this first before we actually talk about some of the other issues that we want to talk about. Here you go. Do y'all remember when I was talking about the Supreme Court ruling the 9-0 Supreme Court ruling, where even Justices Alito and Thomas said that this presidency, this administration, all administrations for that matter, are required to allow people who are going to be deported to file a writ of habeas corpus. They need to be given reasonable time to be able to file it, and everybody gets to file one. And basically saying that everybody who they deported beforehand that was not given an opportunity to file a writ of habeas corpus, those people, were not given their due process rights. And I said on this show that what would happen if Donald Trump tried to claim that this was, he's already said it's an invasion, but the Constitution says that you cannot suspend the writ of habeas corpus unless it's like an invasion or rebellion or something like that. So there has to be an actual invasion going on. And I said, I believe that this administration is going to try and do that. And not only did it wasn't Roger Miller, it was the other quack that is one of his advisors, Stephen Miller or whatever. He talked about that. He spoke about that a little bit. But here is the head of the Department of Homeland Security, dog killer herself, Kristi Noem, who is testifying before the House on the budget of the Department of Homeland Security.
Consequences for breaking the law.
Thank you. Ms. Noem, are you familiar with Article 1, Section 9, Clause 2 of the Constitution that covers the suspension of the writ of habeas corpus?
Yes.
It says that the writ of habeas corpus shall not be suspended unless, when cases of rebellion or invasion, the public safety may require it. Are you aware of which presidents have suspended the writ of habeas corpus?
I know that President Lincoln did.
Yeah, also Roosevelt and President Grant. You testified under oath, I believe, that the Biden administration allowed an invasion into our country. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So do you think it falls under the constitutional guidelines that I just read to you?
I'm not a constitutional lawyer, but I believe...
She's not a constitutional lawyer. She's not a constitutional anything. She probably wipes her butt with the Constitution, but let's continue.
It does.
You've also witnessed that the Democrats here today and also radical activist judges are trying to halt and deny the president's agenda to carry out his constitutional duties to keep Americans safe and carry out his promise to the American people to secure the border and carry out mass deportations of those who have entered the country illegally. Knowing this, are you open and supportive of this constitutional option to suspend the writ of habeas corpus to keep Americans safe and carry out the president's agenda?
Well, this is something that's not in my purview to weigh in on. This is the president's prerogative to pursue, and he has not indicated to me that he will or will not be taking that action.
I want to thank Rogan O'Hanley for his efforts to bring this constitutional solution into the national conversation. Now I want to shift gears real quick. Ms. Noem.
All right. So somebody else, put this. That was one thing I was worried about when I was talking about. Not that I have that many people who would share it with the president or whatever, but one of the things that I was concerned about, again, was that Republicans are going to figure this out and figure out that they could try and use the Constitution to suspend the ability to file the writ of habeas corpus, and by doing so circumvent the Supreme Court ruling requiring that people get to do it. Now, will it hold up in court? It shouldn't hold up in court. I don't think it should, but who knows with this activist conservative Supreme Court, who might very well say this is an invasion, even though it's not. And as such, you can suspend the writ of habeas corpus, therefore you don't have to. And once you do that, how many people are going to get locked up simply because they feel like locking them up? How many people are going to get deported to the El Salvadorian concentration camp simply because Donald Trump wants to do that? Again, nobody should be surprised. If more people listen to Liberal Dan Radio Talk from the Left, That's Right, they would know that this was a possibility, that this was an option. And I even remember, I think some of the people in the chat were like They can't do that. That's not a thing. They wouldn't be able to do that. You have a Republican House member and Kristi Noem, the head of Department of Homeland Security, agreeing that it would be within the president's purview to do just that. I wish I was wrong about this president more often. I wish I could be bored and not have things to cover and have it be a struggle to have things to cover on this podcast. Unfortunately, folks like myself, folks like Hal Sparks, folks like Tommy, we get it right more often than not. Many other people who are creators, who are progressive, left-leaning, liberal, leftist creators here on YouTube, on TikTok, on Twitch, etc., all these people are telling the world how much as we can of what this administration can possibly do and is capable of. And that's why it's important to have all hands on deck. That's why it's important to elevate every single leftist, progressive, liberal podcast that you possibly can. Share it with your friends. Because the only way we fight back is to make sure that we have people who are being heard who will warn you ahead of time, this is what they're going to do next. Because we have the playbook. Donald Trump's following the playbook of Adolf Hitler. We know what they will do next. We know. He's like, it's like, the scene from Waterboy, where, they're running all these plays and the other coach stole Coach Klein's playbook, and he's sitting there and he's seeing what plays are lining up, and they took his manhood because they have the plays and they know. We know. We should be able to stop these a-holes from doing what they're doing because we know. We've told everybody that we could, but we need more reach. Hal needs more reach. Tommy needs more reach. Brian needs more reach. Trucker John needs more reach. And I'd like to say that I need more reach as well as many others who I haven't even brought up, because there are plenty of people who deserve the support of more people in this country, because we're telling the American people what's coming next. And I wish I was wrong. I wish I was wrong more often. I wish I could say, I got that one wrong. I got that one wrong. My bad. Sorry. I was incorrect. But myself, Hal, Brian, Tommy, all the creators that y'all know and enjoy watching, we've been right many more times than we haven't been. Even when we disagree on little things, we still get it right on the main important things. So anyway, that's why we need, all hands on deck, because we need more people to be warned about what's going on, so that when it happens, they'd be like, there you go. Hal called it. Brian called it. Tommy called it. Dan called it. Trucker John called it. That's why we need to help the algorithm. That's why Al Gore needs more rhythm. Anyway, do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? Leave your comments down below. Remember to like the video, share, subscribe to the channel. And of course, unless you're a Nazi, have a good day. Let's see. Let's scroll back up to see what I missed, because as I start ranting, I tend to see, especially when I'm ranting and recording, I tend to see less and less and less of that. There's one other thing I wanted to say, though. I forgot that I wanted to talk about, and I completely forgot now. Oh, well. There was one point I wanted to make. I think it was about something else completely, like a pop culture thing, and I just went on to talk about politics and completely forgot what it was. Thank you, Dean Baker, for getting the Qatar hero joke. As soon as I thought of it, I was like, all right, that needs to be the title, because I had a different title planned. And then I was like, okay, Qatar hero, that has to be the name of the episode, because why wouldn't it be? Anyway, Nunt warning. Yeah, Jan Morgan, exactly, R.E. Mean Coin. Jan, one of my heroes in the chat. See, I love when y'all do that. I love when you agree with me and then tell me what it is you're agreeing with. So when I scroll back up to see what you said, I know what you're agreeing with. So, awesome. See, Leanna Geyer, Hi Liberal Dan, Jolie, Josh, Jeff, Suzanne, everyone. I said back in 2016, the orange one was dishonest, enriched himself, corrupt, shit human being. He wants to be a dictator. Well, yeah, he said he was going to be a dictator on day one this time. But yeah, back in 2016, I was raising that warning flag as well. We were trying to tell y'all. I said that he would do X, Y, and Z. He did X, Y, and Z. One of the first things I was right about when it comes to Donald Trump was that he would get to name 3 Supreme Court justices. And everyone called me crazy. I might be crazy, but it's not about that. You might think I'm foolish. Maybe it's untrue. You might think I'm crazy, but all I want is to no longer have Donald Trump as president of these United States. Do 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 do. Anyway. Trump was crawling on his hands and knees in Saudi Arabia. They're like, bark like a dog. Like from Coming to America. But yeah. Let's keep on scrolling. Is it what an insurance company? I don't remember what I was talking about when it came to that. Yeah, he's gonna have Hitler's. Marsha says Hitler's speeches will be in there as well. Yeah, he loved Hitler's speeches. 3 books for adults. Yes, that's how many books will be in the Trump library. 3 books for adults. Maybe they'll bind all of his executive orders and decorate them with swastikas or whatever. Because at that point, they're not even trying to hide over there. See, it's lonely over there on Twitch. Well, they see the good thing about Twitch. If you're commenting on Twitch, 250 kilo ohm says it would take years to retrofit a complete plane in time for God 2029 exit still alive. Yeah. For the 20, yeah, not God. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. But yeah, one of the benefits about chatting on the Twitch side is that I'm more likely to see your comments because they're less likely to scroll. I would love to have the situation where I completely lose track of what's going on because, well, it scrolls too fast. But we're not there yet. Rwanda is now in the mix of deportation centers. Oh, Jesus Christ. That can't be good. Yeah, Stephen Miller is not an attorney. I'm not an attorney either. I'm not, but I've been told by attorneys that I have a good understanding of the law. And we go through, we read Supreme Court rulings, and then I state my dissents for what Alito says and what Thomas says or whatever. Then Sotomayor, Kagan, Brown come along and they then say the same things in their dissents that I just said, pages before. Let's see. Marsha says he seems to just do what he wants, like the honey badger. Honey badger takes what he wants. Unfortunately, he's not as cool as the honey badger is. See, they are the ones that should be deported to El Salvador. Suzanne, Liberal Dan is very intelligent. Thank you, Suzanne. Appreciate you. Turtle crossings. I saved a few on Route 34.
I like turtles.
See, I got no vibe or empathy or humanity from Trump. The reason he doesn't have any animals is because they can sense he has no empathy and is not worthy of companionship. You're right. You're absolutely right. So let's... All right, we don't need that article anymore. That's part of the DEI segment. All right. Here we go. So, on the other day, I think it was yesterday, I called into a Jeff Carrer's Ringside Politics show. And every Tuesday morning, at least, he has on Michelle Hurstis, who is, they say, I don't know what she wrote, but she's also like on the St. Tammany Parish school board. She's very active within the Republican Party. Of all of his guests that he has on the show, she's probably the nicest to me, but that's not saying much. But anyway, so I call in. I actually get to go on and actually not be cut off at the end of the show and only given 30 seconds, shockingly enough. But I called in about this Qatar issue with Air Force One, and here's the call in its entirety, and we'll be making comments about it and pausing it as we go. So...
A friend who calls in with the handle Liberal Dan joining us.
Well, at least he thinks I'm his friend. I mean, that's good. I mean, at least he likes me.
A friend
unfortunately, I hit the wrong
who
button
calls
because
in
this is too,
with the handle Liberal Dan joining us. Good morning, sir. Welcome. How are you?
Good morning.
Good morning, Michelle.
And unfortunately, It doesn't, like, for some reason, the audio here doesn't seem to be really well done. Like, they didn't record it very well. So I do apologize for the content or the quality of the clip that I'm playing, but I got to deal with what I get, and I downloaded it from his site. So anyway, here you go. Here's more of my call to Jeff Carrera's Ringside Politics program.
So, Hamas, we all know, terrorist organization.
And so this is what I like to do with conservatives when I call into conservative radio shows a lot of the time. Not all of the time, but I like to do this a lot of the time, which is I like to start off by getting them to saying something that they're going to agree with. And it's a very simple thing, easy thing to agree with the fact that Hamas is a terrorist organization. They are. So we start there, and let's continue.
Has been supported in part by Qatar since they supported the 2007, at least since 2007, the takeover of Gaza by Hamas. They've been supporting them even more since 2012. Their headquarters, their main headquarters, are located in Qatar. The leaders may have most recently left, I think, supposedly in November, but the office is still there. The Trump organization under...
You're calling it Qatar? I've heard it's called Qatar. I mean, what do you...
And actually, I talked about this on Monday, and before Monday's show, I was like, well, is it Qatar? Is it Qatar? I went to Google to try and figure it out and basically see which one was correct, and I found the answer, which is it actually is Qatar, except for maybe people in other countries. In a sec, we'll hear that in a second.
What is the correct pronunciation?
I think Qatar might be a more European pronunciation of it. I looked it up and I looked it up last night actually just to make sure I was having the pronunciation correct. But regardless of how we want to pronounce things, the Trump organization is working with two companies, one of them Saudi, one of them Qatar-based, and the Qatar one is controlled by the Qatar government in order to open up a nice big resort in Qatar. Golf course, stuff like that. Hotels or whatever, villas or whatever it is that they're putting out there. So why would I then not believe that this airplane deal is not a quid pro quo type situation? And even if it wasn't...
and I had to throw in quid pro quo there because, no quid pro quo, no quid pro quo.
If any other president, especially like Obama, Biden, Clinton, or whatever, had accepted an Air Force One, luxury palace refitted Air Force One for them to use that would then be transferred to their presidential libraries, y'all would be throwing a fit. Y'all would be...
Well, I don't know. I mean, do you know that for a fact that it's going to be transferred to the library? Because I thought it was being gifted to the Defense Department.
Right. Initially, it's going to be supposedly gifted to the quotes, to the Defense Department, but afterwards it's saying they're saying that it's then being transferred to the Trump Presidential Library. But it's not going to be sitting there in a building. It's going to be an airplane that will be available for use for President Trump after.
And there are people who are now saying that it would just be sitting in the building, but I don't believe that. I don't believe that 1 second. I think Trump will use it for his own personal use. If you believe that he's just going to sit there and he's not going to take advantage of it, he's not going to use it for his own purposes. I mean, he'll use it for his own purposes while he's president. He'll use it for his own purposes when he's not president either. I guarantee you that he'll do that. Maybe I'll be wrong, but how often am I wrong when it comes to Trump, right?
This term.
Yes, Big Hook, the audio is quite sucky. Again, that's the fault of WGSO 990 AM down here in New Orleans and their recording that they take of the show. That's not my fault. Sorry.
But even
he's not going to use it for his personal use.
Even if it was going to only be controlled by our Air Force and then
right.
Just put in mothballs in this presidential library, they now have to take this airplane and they're going to have to sweep it entirely to make sure that there's no bugs or no anything wrong that was put in there by the government that supports Hamas. And then add additional stuff that Air Force One needs in order to...
Wasn't it made by Boeing, though? Isn't it a Boeing jet?
It was made by Boeing, but it was made by Boeing for the Qatar government. If we were to have an airplane that was made by Boeing to be Air Force One, it would be built directly that way.
But the problem is we can't get Boeing to build Air Force One.
I mean, Boeing is busy dealing with, all of their debacles when it comes to their, space exploration attempts. That being said, that doesn't justify accepting this from Qatar.
They're late on delivering Air Force One. That's the problem here.
And there's 2 of them that are supposedly on order, but,
And it's like, what is it, $400 billion or $40 billion or something?
Million.
Something like that, and it's saving our government money.
But even if there's,
It's not saving our government money because we're still building those other 2. And guess what? We're not going to get to use it for the next president.
nothing wrong with it. I mean, we're still spending that money on those two other planes, and we'll need them because the plane's supposed to be going to the Trump library.
Well, what this is going to do is allow them to use a plane that is 27 years younger than, Air Force One is 40
newer, not younger,
years old, and I think at some point you have to worry about that. And this plane is only 13 years old, from what I understand. So, you're getting something that is much newer, and I would assume safer for the president to use.
And do we really believe that it would be, quote, safer if we were making, this is going to be safer argument if it was Biden or Obama or Clinton doing this? No, you would be giving them the third degree, and y'all would be saying that this is ridiculous. It's a waste of money, because now we got to take the money and now go refit it to be able to handle all of the things that Air Force One needs.
And we have to refit it, and that's clearly wasting money when we could just build them from scratch and have it done to our specifications that we want initially. But again, they're not really about getting rid of fraud, waste, and abuse. They're just claiming to be against fraud, waste, and abuse as a way to get rid of the programs that they don't like.
That efficiency.
Right.
And if it ends up going to...
Let me let Michelle answer, and then we'll get back to you, Liberal Dan. Okay. Michelle, any thoughts?
Well, I mean, how much is that going to cost us? Have we figured out how much that's going to cost us compared to how much building an entire new plane?
I've seen millions.
All I know is this, Liberal Dan. I mean, President.
All he knows, that's a dangerous statement.
Trump negotiated a good deal with Boeing and saved the taxpayers a lot of money. But Boeing has been delayed in delivering. So we're at a point now where this plane is offered to the Defense Department. They're using it as long as it's
offered to Trump. It just happens to be going to the Defense Department, but it's going to be used by Trump. And again, we have to make sure that it's safe for any president to use, regardless of who is the president, because we want to make sure that Donald Trump can't be spied on and let our state secrets out inadvertently. Now, he lets our state secrets out purposefully other times, like, when he gave away the Israeli intelligence to Russia, who then passed it on to Iran, who then passed it on to Hamas. But, we want to limit what Trump gives away, I guess, to only the things that he purposely gives away. We don't want him screwing up and giving away other things too.
Swept and they check it and make sure that there's no safety issues. I'm okay with him using it. Now you're saying that basically it's a quid pro quo, and that we're going to be doing what for Qatar for this plane? We're going to be.
It's basically. I would say that you would say that if this happened under Biden and Hunter Biden negotiated a deal with Qatar to get this plane, you would absolutely be calling it a quid pro quo. You would absolutely saying that they would.
But I want to see how we're going to be delivering for Qatar. I mean, what are we doing for Qatar for them? Giving us this plane.
They're opening a multi-million-dollar resort in Qatar. Okay. And look.
Well, that's Trump doing that, right? That's the Trump organization, correct?
Yeah. And who do you think is really in control of the Trump organization? Do you think it's really? Do you think it's Trump has no say with what goes on over there?
So you're saying that Trump is building a resort?
Yeah, the sons are the figureheads, but I mean, I'm sure they get their marching orders from Daddy.
So you say that Trump is building a resort to get us a free plane?
I think that they are offering a free plane just so he would open the resort in Qatar. That's the quid pro quo. You have the
okay. So basically, Trump is going to spend millions and millions of dollars to save our country billions of dollars.
Do you see the contortionism that's going on right now? I mean, they will bend over all sorts of ways. I mean, I don't know if she's dating anybody, but if she can contort that much, they must have a very fun life together. That's all I'm going to say.
Wow, that actually sounds like a great idea. Thanks.
The thing about it is, I mean, he's got Trump Force One. He's got his own private plane that is extremely luxurious. I don't think he needs.
And I'm sure this plane is far more advanced and far more, far better equipped when it comes to amenities than even his own Trump Force One. And even Trump, when he was interviewed by Hannity, about the whole thing, and he was basically saying that the new plane is so much nicer than Air Force One, so why wouldn't he take it? Because, he needs golden toilets and, baby kittens to, lick him clean or whatever. I don't know. But again, the kittens wouldn't go anywhere near him because they know he's a piece of crap.
His plane for his personal use after he finishes his term.
So Trump's actually doing a great job. So Trump's taking his personal money and spending millions and millions of dollars to put a resort somewhere to save the American people billions of dollars.
And it's not saving us any money because we're still paying for the planes that are coming from Boeing. They're still going to have to replace this plane, this jet, when this jet goes to the Trump Presidential Library. So it's not a saving of money. Not one bit.
And time.
When it gets transferred,
and you think that's a bad deal, liberal man?
When it gets transferred to the Trump Library, like they're saying it's going to happen,
and he's not going to use it.
We still have to buy the two other planes coming from Boeing.
No, he's probably not going to transfer it to the Trump Library.
Okay. Well,
he's probably not going to do what everyone's saying that he's going to do. Good job.
And final thing, if
let's hope Boeing can deliver. Okay, they're years behind. Real quick, we got to go. 30 seconds. Go ahead, Liberal Dan. Final comment.
If he ends up using the plane for personal use after it gets transferred to the Trump Library, if he does that, then guess what? Then how is that not fraud and abuse?
He's got his own plane.
He's got a very nice plane. All right,
and I'm sure this is a nicer plane, and I'm sure he's going to want to use this one because it's the gift to him, and he's going to say, why shouldn't I be able to use it? It was gifted to me.
Thank you. That is Liberal Dan. I don't think he's going to need two luxury jets. He's got a
right. So he'll put Trump Force One in the presidential library, then he'll use the new one. Why would he waste the plane, right? I mean, if somebody gave you a big plane, you'd want to use it as much as possible, right? And this plane is supposedly much nicer than that. But again, the idea that this is saving us money, it's not saving us any money. We have to spend more money to refit this plane to make sure that it, meets the safety requirements that we would want to have on any presidential plane, i.e. Air Force One. And then we're still paying Boeing for the other two that are coming down the pipe.
Well, now.
He's not even taking a salary, dude.
Yeah.
So why does he, come on, really?
Right.
Not even taking a salary. How much money has he wasted going on golf trips? How much money has he spent forcing our government officials, employees, etc., when they travel to stay at his resorts instead of other resorts? Do you think he's giving our government a discount when they stay at his resorts? No. That's another part of the grift. He's funneling the money to the Trump organization by requiring the people to stay at the hotels that he owns, that his organization owns, even when he's not there.
Yeah, and they're spending a lot of money in Qatar, getting this plane. Seems like we're winning on all sides of it to me, but...
That's the contortionist Jeff Quer and Michelle Hurstis. Funny thing, I don't know, random side point with that. Michelle Hurstis and this other person, Mimi, used to have a show together that they had to, I guess, cancel because the name they were using for the show matched the name of a larger show. And Mimi is now Jeff's wife. I don't know if they're still friends or whatever, but if Mimi and Michelle are friends, I don't know if they had a falling out or whatever. Who knows? Who cares, right? But it's the amount, again, of contortionism that goes on here that they will bend over all forwards, backwards, sideways. They will twist and turn and do anything they can to justify anything that Donald Trump does. Even, again, frickin' Laura Loomer comes out and says that this would be a stain on the Trump presidency if he accepts this jet. If Laura Loomer can see that, and these two can't, that just goes to show you how lost MAGA is. Because anybody who stands up and says that Trump is doing something wrong, people are like, oh, well, that's fine. You have your right to your opinion. Or no, those people then become persona non grata. Those people then become rhinos. Those people are then labeled not loyal to Trump because they dare question anything he does. I think the only thing I've ever heard and remember, I guess, Jeff Carrera talking about Donald Trump and the Trump administration is he keeps complaining that they've not released the Epstein files yet. But, you know, the reason that they haven't released the Epstein files is probably because Trump's name is all over them, and they don't want people seeing that. But these people will never oppose Trump. They will continue to double down on 12. They will continue telling us that it's raining when Trump is peeing all over them. They will continue to justify their bad decisions because they'll never admit that they made a bad decision when it comes to Donald Trump. Anyway, do you agree with me or do you agree with Jeff Carrera? Leave your comments down below. Remember to like the video, share, subscribe to the channel, and unless you support this dumb gift idea, have a good day. So do you think Trump has ever tried to not pay the mechanics that work on his old-ass personal plane he brought into the fire sale from the bankruptcy of Trump Airlines? Maybe. I mean, that would be kind of dumb, but then again, Trump isn't the smartest cookie out there. We do know that Donald Trump has, it has a history of stiffing the people that do work for him. So one would think that, you might want to pick and choose who you stiff because, maybe stiffing the person that does the floors isn't going to put you in harm's way if the floors get a crack in them. But if the Trump Force One gets a crack in them, that's the stupidest name for a Trump Force One. It's just like calling RFK Jr. RFKJ. It's just so stupid. Laura Loomer is regretting her MAGA Loco Botox lips now, I guess. I don't know. I mean, she still says that she supports him. I mean, she says she'll take a bullet for him in that same post. That she would take a bullet for Donald Trump, but thinks that this decision is bad. So again, stopped clocks and all, right? All the stopped clocks. All right. Let's switch gears now for a second, because I mean, this is an incredibly long, stupid thing, but I couldn't think of anything better or shorter to say. Couldn't get the words down beyond that. As we all know, MAGA claims to hate DEI, even though they don't know what DEI really stands for. Trump said diversity, equity, and inclusion, so he knows the words, shockingly enough. But he doesn't know what the words mean in combination with each other and how we use them. So Donald Trump, MAGA, we already talked about, Pete Hegseth and his, removal, trying to remove trans folks from the military. Then again, guess what? He's, again, using more identity politics than anybody on the left ever has, because he's looking at them and he's not seeing what their abilities are. He's judging them only on who they are, how they were born, and the fact that they're trans to make that decision. They could be the best soldier in the world, but if they're trans, he's going to get rid of them. That is identity politics right there. That is using people's identities to make decisions instead of trying to find the most qualified. The problem is, before we started having DEI in the initiatives and making sure that people had equity, making sure we had inclusion, people artificially chose only like white men to do the job because they didn't trust anybody else to do the job, despite the fact that those other people could probably do the jobs better than many of the people that they were choosing to hire. Because when they call something identity politics, every conservative accusation is a confession. So what's some examples of this week's, or maybe the end of last week's, Trump administration using identity politics? Turkish-American online streamer who was critical of Donald Trump, Hassan Piker, 2.8 million followers on Twitch. was detained Monday. He was questioned for hours a day earlier, despite being born in the U.S. and enrolled in Global Entry. Piker believes he was targeted because of his views, and Customs and Border Protection officers asked his opinion of Trump and Hamas, among other topics. He is frequently critical of Israel and the war on Gaza. The goal here is to put fear into people's hearts, he says, to have a chilling effect on speech. Piker recounted in detailed, nearly 40-minute long account on his YouTube channel. The government is now officially willing and able to intimidate you for your speech. That is a direct violation of the First Amendment. Piker did not have a comment Tuesday on his Twitch stream a day earlier. According to a spokesperson, the hours-long broadcast on the live streaming platform included the same account posted to YouTube, along with Piker's commentary on other topics, and his speaking engagement, I guess, at the University of Chicago. So this is not, this is not them just randomly asking somebody or them picking somebody specifically because they thought he might be a terrorist. It's picking somebody who is a political opponent and detaining them and putting fear into their hearts in the hopes that it'll have a chilling effect, as he said, on other people's speech, to prevent other people from speaking out. How else is Donald Trump using identity politics to push his agenda? He has labeled South Africans, the Afrikaners, the white South Africans, that they should be given the refugee status under Executive Order 14204. And because he's alleging racial discrimination. And the resettlement program is described as P1, allows for the consideration of refugee claims from individuals of any nationality, especially those with compelling protection needs. Of course, the protection needs of these folks are not compelling. We'll get into that in a second. But P1, individual referrals, according to the Department of State, P1 allows for consideration of refugee claims from persons of any nationality, usually with compelling protection needs, for whom resettlement appears to be the appropriate, durable solution. P1 cases are identified and referred to USRAP by U.S. Embassy, UNHCR, or a designated non-governmental organization. UNHCR has historically referred the vast majority of P1 cases. However, USRAP will no longer accept referrals from UNHCR except in the categories listed in this year's allocation in the presidential determination. Some NGOs providing humanitarian assistance in locations where there are large concentrations of refugees are eligible to provide P1 referrals, as U.S. ambassador may make a P1 referral for a person still in their country of origin if the ambassador determines that such cases are in need of exceptional treatment and the Department of State and the Department of Homeland Security occurs. Now, the particular language from the executive order here is Section 4, refugee resettlement of other humanitarian conditions. The Secretary of State and Secretary of Homeland Security shall take appropriate steps consistent with law to prioritize humanitarian relief, including admission and resettlement through United States refugee admissions programs for Afrikaners in South Africa who are victims of unjust racial discrimination. Such plan shall be submitted to the President through the Assistant to the President and Homeland Security Advisor. Are these people, these individuals being unfairly targeted because they're white South Africans? Or is there more to the story? As we would expect with anything pertaining to Donald Trump and what Donald Trump is doing, there's clearly always going to be more to the story. Historically, the 1913 Natives Land Act of South Africa, the land question goes back more than a century to that Natives Land Act, which provided a legislative form to process the dispossession of people's farms. So in 1913, they saw thousands of black families removed from their land by the apartheid government. The act became law on June 19th, 1913, limiting African land ownership to 7% and later 13% through the 1936 Native Trust and Land Act of South Africa. The act restricted black people from buying or occupying land. The apartheid government began the mass relocation of black people to poor homelands and to poorly planned and serviced townships. No longer able to provide for themselves and their families, people were forced to look for work far away from their homes. This marked the beginning of socioeconomic challenges in the country facing today, such as landlessness, poverty, and inequality. So here's the question I would ask any conservative who thinks that these white South Africans are being unfairly discriminated against because they are having their lands taken from them. let's say we both had grandparents. I'm sure we all do. Let's say my grandfather stole a piece of artwork from your grandfather, right? Let's say that happened. And then you find out that I have possession of this artwork that is supposed to belong to your family, but it is now in my family. No, years have passed, decades have passed. Isn't it a role of government to help return that property to the original owner, or in this case, the family of the original owner, the family that should have possession of this artwork to begin with? I would think so. What about, like, another example? Let's say your grandfather had a briefcase full of money, and my grandfather took it and hid it away somewhere. And then it was determined that, oh, it's still in my property, it's still in my possession. We never opened it. Let's say we never knew what was in it. But let's say you now wanted to come after me to get that money that my grandfather stole from yours. It is a legitimate purpose of government to come and take that property that belonged to your family and take it from me and give it to you. Right? So if that's the case, if you can agree on both of those things, then why would you not agree that when the government of South Africa, the apartheid government, stole land from black families living in South Africa and gave it to white people, why would you then think that it would not be a legitimate purpose of government, a legitimate role of government, who was actually trying to act in a just and fair way to take the land back from the people who got the land with ill-gotten gains and return it to the families that originally owned the land? This is not discrimination against people because they're white. This is actions to restore the stolen property back to the black South Africans that should have never been taken in the first place had South Africa been run by a moral group of leaders. So you can't sit here and tell me that these people are being mistreated because they're being forced to give back the land they shouldn't have owned to begin with. But that's what these conservatives will claim. They'll claim, oh, you're stealing the white people's farms. No, you can't steal something that's been stolen from you. If you stole something or your family stole something and I take it back, that's not me stealing from you. That's me getting my property back. But these people don't see it that way because these people view any actions that are done, I guess, by white people as being okay. And Donald Trump wants more of those type of people in our country because he views that those are the types of people who are going to vote for him when they become citizens. So again, the often made claim that Democrats, liberals, progressives, etc. are bringing in all these migrants to the United States because we want them to vote. Doesn't necessarily mean that they have a fast track to vote, but Donald Trump sure as hell wants these people in this country so that they will support him. Because every conservative accusation is confession, because hypocrisy is a conservative prerequisite. Now let's finish part one. Actually, we have two more things, I guess. Library of Congress firing because of DEI. Let's see what Carolyn Levitt had to say about the firing of the head of the Library of Congress.
Fired the Librarian of Congress. Why did he choose to do that?
We felt she did not fit the needs of the American people. There were quite concerning things that she had done at the Library of Congress in the pursuit of DEI and putting inappropriate books in the library for children, and we don't believe that she was serving the interests of the American taxpayer well, so she has been removed from her position, and the president is well within his rights to do that.
Put things in the library that were inappropriate for children. These idiots think that the Library of Congress is like the library that's down the street. The Library of Congress has a collection of over 178 million items, including millions of books, printed materials, manuscripts, maps, photographs, and other formats in over 470 languages. It includes significant collections of rare books, legal materials, music, and films. This isn't some place where children can go and check out a book. But these idiots either A, believe that to be the case, or B, just want the poorly educated to believe that's the case. And, well, you know that's true because when Trump says jump, they'll say how high. These people really think that the Library of Congress is like a local branch of your library, and that the books that are being put in there that are inappropriate for children, the books that are being put in there are books that are made that so we can have a record of as many published things as possible. But these idiots don't understand that, or hope that you don't understand that, because they're either lying or they're stupid, and it's probably a little of column A and a little of column B. You ain't never had a friend like me. Da 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 boo doo 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 doo. Okay, let's do the final thing of this part, and then we'll probably record something, the next part, in its own separate little video. This week's, actually, let's do it separately. And so first, do you agree with me, disagree with me on all these DEI things? Do you think that the Trump administration is just foolish and doesn't know these things, or are they just trying to fool everybody else in what they're doing? Leave your comments down below. Remember to like the video, share, subscribe to the channel. Unless you're a Nazi, have a good day. The reason I stopped that is because we are going to also, if you are a member of the Liberal Dan Radio patron, you would have already had access to this week's Hypocrite of the Week because I posted it yesterday. Also, if you are a member of, if you are a Liberal Dan Radio patron, you also get access to old shows of Dan and Dave on the Air. Talk from the Left, that's right. And I have uploaded a more recent episode of Liberal Dan Radio, Dan and Dave on the Air, which it was in March of 2009, I think. I think March 20th was the date, or March 27th, one of those two. And this is an episode that we had several union folks to discuss workers' rights. And you had Tiger Hammond, who is a Louisiana member of the AFL-CIO. You had somebody from a local SCIU union. You had somebody else who was in one of the outreach people for the national AFL-CIO organization. So we had a lot of guests on the show, and we had other people calling in who disagreed with us because we're on a conservative talk station, so it's bound to happen. But one of the things that I was amused when I was going through and just listening to bits and pieces to make sure I knew exactly what it was that I was posting is the bumper music that we're able to use. Because, you know, going in and out of commercials, you know, we have several, you know, on YouTube, I can't use, you know, popular music. But on the radio show, I could because they handled all of that stuff for us. So coming out from one of the breaks, discussing labor, we had Rush, Working Man, playing coming out of break. And I'm sure there were other songs related to labor and working that were included on that show, but I didn't listen to the whole thing before I posted it. But I did like the fact that we had that little bit of say as to what shows we would be playing coming in and out of commercials, because, you know, there was one time where it happened where I wanted them to play More Human Than Human by White Zombie, and the person who was running the soundboard chose the version that had the woman moaning at the beginning, and I was like, oh Jesus Christ, this is not good. I didn't want to put out an orgasming woman over the airwaves. I just wanted to start with the regular start before or after all of the moaning took place. So I was just like, ugh. But one of the other interesting things that happened that I posted yesterday, I guess there's two things. Again, one of them was a bit or a commercial. The commercial that used to play on other shows on WGSO that was called Barachnophobia. It was labeled the Barachnophobia thing, and basically it was like, are you afraid of, you know, Barack Obama? Do you have this, that, or the other? I basically treated it like a medicine commercial or something, like for a new prescription. If you have Barachnophobia, your only cure is Dan and Dave on the Air. Talk from Left, that's right. Fridays at 5 p.m. Central on WGSO. And I was like putting in the warning. It was like, if your lack of Barachnophobia lasts for more than 4 hours, you have been cured, instead of, you know, getting priapism or whatever it is you might get from Viagra. So that was fun. And then I also uploaded another an old Hypocrite of the Week, because I used to do Hypocrites of the Week back then as well. And this one, though, these ones used yakety sax. And again, I would love to be able to use yakety sax, but I don't think I can because I'll get, again, copyright flagged if I do that. So I have to go with If I Was a Chicken, which is fine. It's a fine song. It works. It suits my purposes. And I don't know if I'd go back to Yakety Sax at this point, although I really would like to. I don't know if that would be too confusing. But anyway, so let's go ahead and play this week's Liberal Dan Radio Hypocrite of the Week. This week's Hypocrite of the Week is Pete Hegseth. The DOI hire to lead the Department of Defense hates DEI. He claims people should be judged on their own merits and their ability to do the job. However, he doesn't think women should serve in combat roles, and he wants to eliminate trans folk from the military altogether with no regards to their ability. He claims to hate identity politics, but he's getting rid of people simply because of their identities. Of course, every conservative accusation ends up being a confession. To see who next week's Hypocrite of the Week will be, tune in live Mondays and Wednesdays at 8 p.m. Central at liberaldanradio.com or twitch.tv/liberaldanradio for more talk from the left. That's right. And there you go. Liberal Dan Radio Hypocrite of the Week is Pete Hegseth. So there you go. So you should ask Rocky Mountain Mike to compose you something in. I'd love to have something composed for me simply because of the fact that I would love to be able to have an outro that can be played on Twitch. But anyway, we'll go look that up and we'll see. Big Hook doesn't mind the exit music, but again, the exit music, Twitch doesn't like the exit music, which is unfortunate. Let's see, those MAGA NOLA AM radio folks said Boeing was late delivering planes. I wonder if they remember Trump 45 canceled Obama's plane, under which Felon 47 would now be using. Yeah, of course. Also, there are plenty of other things that they don't realize. There was the one thing I wanted to look up real quick, and I forgot to do it before the show. Maybe we'll have to talk about that Monday. Maybe we'll have to go over that Monday. I'll make a note right now that the show for the day before my birthday. My birthday is May 20th. I'm having a karaoke thing on Saturday. If you were in New Orleans, you'd be welcome to join. However, I wouldn't be opposed if y'all wanted to make it rain for my birthday. Venmo is the best way because you get, do friends and family, and, that's it. But anyway, I wanted to talk about the Biden executive order about prescription drugs versus Trump's. I want to do a side-by-side comparison because basically, just to give a 30,000 point view of this, Donald Trump is claiming that he's done something that's going to lower prescription drug prices for American people. Except one of his first actions was to rescind the executive order that Joe Biden put in that did just that. And now he's trying to make drugs cheaper for American people because he doesn't want Biden to be able to say he did it because he's jealous and petty. So we're going to go over those two and see how similar they actually are. So that being said, so DB Golding, could you explain to me why Trump has not put Mike Pillow in charge of your nation's cybersecurity? Don't give him any ideas. Because the Mike Pillow guy is the My Pillow guy, whatever, is bleh. He also used 1488 and other anti-Semitic imagery and numbers in one of his ads that was advertising his pillows. His pillows went down from like $30 to $29.99 to $19.99 to $14.88. Don't tell me that wasn't specifically done to be anti-Semitic, because it clearly was. Yeah, Mine Pillow, exactly. Hypocrite of the Week reminds me of the old Jim Hightower bits. Well, I like to have some funny bits every now and then. So that's one of the things I think that makes me maybe unique amongst common creators or whatever, is that I throw in these little bits here and there and these little clips and don't just have the whole shows. So anyway, so the last thing, is this the last thing I wanted to talk about? I think it is, actually. I think we're getting to the last thing I wanted to talk about, and it's only almost 10. Although this might take a while. This might take a little bit, because again, it's something else that was obtained from WGSO, although I think this audio is more clear than Jeff Carrere's audio. Don't ask me why. It's the same people doing it. It's the same station doing it. I don't know why this would be more clear. So on WGSO 990 AM here in New Orleans, there is a show that airs every Thursday night called Liberty or Lockdown. Of course, it started during the pandemic, and these people didn't like the fact that, they had lockdowns. They thought it was violating their liberty to have these lockdowns. And they've continued on their show. The show's also called like Baldy and the Blonde, and the guy who's on the show is also the flaming conservative, the same flaming conservative who claimed, after I called into Jeff's show, he claimed that I was wrong and that the testing for COVID-19 absolutely did cause cases. Like, testing for COVID caused people to get COVID. This is how crazy and kooky these people are. They actually believe, instead of saying, Trump was wrong for saying if you have more testing, you have more cases, instead of just saying, yeah, maybe he was wrong about that particular point, he's like, nope, he's right. COVID is caused in part by testing for COVID. That just shows you how dumb these people are. But, we're talking about DEI. One of the other things that conservatives don't understand is not just DEI, but critical race theory, CRT. They don't understand it, and they don't know what it means. They don't know what it is. So we're going to listen to this commercial that airs like every commercial break on that Liberty or Lockdown show, and we will talk about all the ways in which it's wrong.
Some people in the Louisiana legislature want to permit the teaching of critical race theory in our state.
Okay, the only place that critical race theory is being taught in any state, be it Louisiana or any other state in this nation, is law school. Because critical race theory is a legal concept that is brought up in law school. It's not being taught in kindergarten. It's not being taught in 5th grade. It's only being taught in law school. So let's continue.
That theory says that if 2 babies are born today, 1 black baby and 1 white baby, that the white baby is the mean racist oppressor of the black baby, and that the black baby is the weak, incompetent victim of the white baby.
Nope, sorry, you're wrong. That is not what critical race theory says, not one bit. Again, critical race theory is something that's taught in law school, and it's meant to be something that, goes over the reasons why we have racial disparities. And it specifically is not saying that black people are inferior just because they're black people. They are specifically stating that it has nothing to do with any inferiority of black people. It has everything to do with the fact that we have racist policies that are put into place that make it harder, that put obstacles in the way of black people trying to achieve success. It's a more, complex explanation of privilege. Whereas, let's say 2 people were running a race, and typically when 2 people run a race, they have the same course, it's the same length, it's the same conditions. But what critical race theory helps to explain is that the reason why a black person might have less success in this country is not because of any inferiority that we're claiming. It's because of the obstacles that this society puts in the way of marginalized and oppressed people, i.e. the oppression of those people is what's causing the people to have a harder time. It's forcing them to do more work to get the same results. It doesn't mean that the person who is, on the more privileged side is more adept. They can be less adept and still reach the same levels. It doesn't mean that the person is inept who is having the obstacles put in their way. It means that, they're having obstacles in the way, so they have more stuff to deal with. So let's take that race, for example, like a foot race between a black person and a white person, hypothetically speaking or whatever. Let's say the white person in this situation would have a straight course with no hills and nothing in their way. Meanwhile, the black person in the same situation would have curves in the track, bumps in the track, hills, have to go up and down hills, would have to jump over hurdles, and various other things to be able to get to the finish line. That's basically, in a nutshell, what privilege is. That basically, in a nutshell, is what CRT tries to answer. not the BS that is being stated in this commercial.
Unbelievable. Those people say that the innocent white baby by his DNA is bad and racist, and the black baby by his DNA is a weak victim who can never succeed. Only a total fool would believe or accept this idiocy.
Well, he's right, but he's wrong about why he's right, because only a complete idiot and fool would believe what they're saying about critical race theory. Nobody is saying that black people can't be successful in this country, in this state. Nobody is saying that. Not one bit. We're saying that there are obstacles that are put in the way of black people in this country because we have racist policies, we have racist policing, we have various other things that go on. Like, for example, unarmed black men versus unarmed white men in this country. If you're an unarmed black person in this country, you're 3.5 times more likely to be shot by the police than an unarmed white person. That has nothing to do with the person's DNA. It has to do with the fact that the people who are in police are more likely to draw a gun and shoot a black person compared to white people. And it doesn't say anything about the race of the cops either, because the cop could be black, the cop could be white. There's nothing in that statistic that mentions the race or the genetics or the DNA of the cop doing the shooting. It just at the end of the day says that if you're a black person, you're 3.5 times more likely to be shot by a cop as an unarmed person than a white person who is unarmed. Simple as that. It's a very simple concept. It says nothing about the why or that the person is incapable or that the person is inept or that the person on the other side, that white people specifically are racist because of that. Now, we are living in a society that promotes and supports white supremacy. And if you know this and do nothing to stop it, then you're complicit with white supremacists. And at that point, I don't see a moral difference between somebody who sees white supremacy and doesn't try and fix it and someone who is a white supremacist themselves. But these type of people believe that by saying that white people benefit from white supremacy, white people benefit from white privilege. These people are trying to, lost my train of thought. Anyway, let's go on and continue. I'll have to edit that part out.
Yet they want to teach this foolishness to Louisiana's young people.
No, we don't. Not one bit. Again, critical race theory is something that belongs in law school, and that's where it should be taught. Now, do we want perhaps to teach people about, privilege and about how black people might have more difficulty in life because of the fact that, they're treated unfairly in this country, and go over how racism set black people back, how Jim Crow laws set black people back and gave them more hurdles that they had to deal with, how the destruction of Black Wall Street in Tulsa, Oklahoma, eliminated wealth, stole wealth from black families in that area, how redlining prevented black people from buying into good neighborhoods and stuck them into poor neighborhoods because we were only going to allow black people to live in certain areas. Should we learn about that and then maybe have people understand that all of these reasons that we're seeing, all of these things that have been done in the history of this nation, that, maybe that is causing us to, have disproportionate levels of success amongst black people and white people? I think it's a reasonable thing to look at. But it doesn't say at all that black people are inept simply because they're black. It doesn't say anything about the ineptness of black people at all. It's not a matter of ineptness. If we're running a race and you tie a 20-pound ankle weight to my leg, I'm not going to be able to catch up to you unless I put in more effort than you. I would have to put in more effort to be able to succeed. Where you, if you don't have the ankle weight tied to you, don't have to put as much effort to succeed. That's what privilege is about. That's what, ultimately what they would discuss at law school levels, what CRT is about. But these people want to complain if we dare say we had slavery in this country and that made it harder for black people to generate familiar wealth, generational wealth amongst their family. We had racism in this country and Jim Crow in this country. So that made it harder for black people in this country to grow their wealth and have generational wealth. We had redlining in this country, and that made it impossible, harder, at least, for black people to grow generational wealth. Centuries of oppression and marginalization of black people has made it harder for black people to succeed in this country. Again, it doesn't mean that they won't. To quote Jim Scalzi, an author, one of the books he has, Red Shirts. Basically, it's a comparison of video games. Like a white person automatically starts the game of life on an easier mode than a black person does. All other things being equal. So, you might have, less obstacles thrown in your way in the course of playing the video game of life. Does that mean that the white person is automatically guaranteed to succeed? Nope, not one bit. You might be very inept as a white person, and despite the fact that you're playing on the game on easy mode, you still might not be able to figure out the controls. You still might not be able to succeed and do well in life. But it's not going to be because of your race that's preventing you. It's other things that are preventing you from doing that. Meanwhile, the black person who starts the game of life on a harder level may very well be able to win the game and be successful. But the effort that individual has to put in, let's say we're playing Mario and we have to save the princess. The white person's not automatically going to save the princess just because they're white. They might be inept at the game. The black person isn't going to automatically fail at saving the princess just because he's black, but he's going to have to play a harder game to do it. Now, people who can understand that might be able to then understand, well, why is it that we're always saving a princess? But that's like 102 level. That's like maybe sophomore level privilege and discrimination or whatever. So, and they're not ready for topics of intersectionality if they listen to these types of commercials and believe them to be true. 250 kilo ohm says lack of equity. Exactly, a lack of equity. Let's continue.
Please call your legislator today and raise some sand.
Raise some sand. Go raise some sand, which I guess means cause some trouble. Stir up some things. Of course, he's telling them to raise some sand over something that is an untrue statement. Because again, we're not saying all those things, but it's very easy to tear down a straw man. So what do you think? Do you agree with my assessment of this stupid little commercial, or do you think they're spot on? Leave your comments down below. Remember to like the video, share, subscribe to the channel, and unless you're a Nazi or support this guy, whatever he's saying, have a good day. So P-Dubs, what's up, P-Dubs? Good to see you. Thank you for joining the chat. I wonder what would happen if Trump declared all peoples without blue eyes and blonde hair would be deported without due process. Would the Trump supporters get it then? Probably not. They would find, especially with Jeff and not Jeff and Mimi, but Jeff and Michelle in that show, in the previous clip that we went over. I guarantee you they would find an excuse, even though Jeff doesn't have blonde hair. And I don't think Mimi, I'm sorry, well, Mimi doesn't have blonde hair either. I don't think Michelle has blonde hair either. But they would find some excuse to support it or justify it or whatever. Because they can never admit that they're wrong. Never will they admit that they're wrong. White people bred slaves to sell like cattle. Teach that in school. Exactly. That should absolutely be taught in school. Let's see. DB Golding says, perfect example is when a returned serviceman came back from World War II and got a low-interest government mortgage except for black servicemen. Exactly. See, DB Golding, I did 1 2-hour session of critical race theory in college and my brain melted. Let's see. Ankle weights. It reminds me of my ex. That's funny. Let's see. Robin, oh, Dan, these are scientific studies. Haha, those dum-dums have no comprehension of how to study their own intergenerational genetic line, let alone much else. Exactly. Republicans, Leona Geyer says Republicans want to segregate schools again. I'm sure. Leona Geyer, Little Princess came from white men. Exactly. Went to go-kart track Sunday with niece and her boys gonna ride, but saw a Miss Pac-Man machine. I love the old Miss Pac-Man machines, especially the ones where Miss Pac-Man speeds around quickly. Those are really great. Those are fun. One of my favorite ones of the old school games to play. Let's see. When Kushner realized more black people were dying from COVID, he backtracked on issuing a 95 mask nationwide. Exactly. That's exactly what he did. Because Kushner viewed it as a possibility that they would be able to, I guess, eliminate the black population simply by allowing them to get COVID-19. Because before the vaccines came out, the death rate of COVID was higher amongst the black communities in this country, because if you're a black person in this country, you're more than likely to be living in poverty. You're more likely than not to be able to be living in like public housing. You're more likely than not to be in, as such, being in close quarters with others, and making it so that it's easier for you to transmit the virus to other people. Once the vaccines became available, though, that changed, and the deaths among the black community reduced significantly, and then the highest death rates were in rural white Republican areas where people were rejecting the vaccine, were rejecting masking, were rejecting social distancing, etc. They were creating the problem amongst themselves. Selena Geyer says little kids pick up what's being said around them like white supremacy. Exactly. Kids are not born racist. Kids are born to, love other people. You see kids, playing around where they just, if you don't have a racist parent and a white kid meets a black kid, they will play together like nothing happened. I was the only white kid on my block between the ages of like infancy and like 6 or 7. I didn't necessarily view the people on my block as being different. We were just the kids in the block. I'm not gonna say I was colorblind because, just because, the whole I don't see color thing ignores a lot of things that goes on to black people that shouldn't be ignored. But, viewing other people as, kids are not going to automatically default to I don't like that person because they're black. I don't like that person because they're white. Kids are going to want to play together because they're kids. Only adult hatred can cause the toxicity and the toxic environment that creates racism, that breeds and allows racism to fester and grow as the cancer that it is. Well, DB Golding says the black people all were working in essential services that remained open. That is also true, but I think part of it is the fact that they auto-modded something or whatever. Because again, they 250 Kilogram says I had a little kid point to my bandana and say towel head. Wonder where he picked that up. Not. So yes, I lied that comment because it was basically quoting something else that somebody said. I don't believe that 250 Kilogram believes in using that term. We're criticizing that term, and we're questioning whether or not or where that term might have come from, and we're actually not questioning it because we know where it comes from. It comes from their racist parents. But yeah, back to DB Golding's point. The research that I did on those points said that a lot of much of the contributing factor was the fact that black people living in poverty are more likely to be living in apartments, especially government housing, and they're more likely to be in close together situations, and as such more likely to catch COVID and transmit COVID, etc. The fact that they're working in those jobs as well could have also contributed to it. Absolutely. I'm not going to deny that and say that that wasn't the case, but that would be also another reason why it was growing amongst the black community more quickly during lockdowns, during the time where we didn't have a vaccine readily and widely available for people to use. So, anyway. Well, thank you for joining us, P-Dubs. Appreciate you. Stephen, I had never seen a black person until about the age of 5 or 6. And that's funny. I mean, went to a Jewish preschool or whatever, like a Jewish-run preschool at the Jewish Community Center. So at school, all I would see was white people. And then, well, unless you're a Nazi, then you would say there was no white people there because Nazis don't think Jews are white people. Nazis don't think Jews are people. But in my neighborhood, I was the only white person. But they didn't treat me any differently. I didn't treat them any differently because I had good parents. I had parents that were not racist. So, let's see. I have horses aboard living in a red state. I can't believe the stories they tell at the good old days. Yeah. That's unfortunate, all the stories that we hear. Anyway, so I'm probably not going to open up the phone lines tonight simply because of the fact that I have a bunch of videos that I need to upload and to cut together and upload for the show. So anyway, so I think that will probably be the end of the show for today. Again, just as a reminder, when I have the link available if you want to get a copy of both books, I guess, that I have a short story written in, you don't need to buy it directly from me. You could just buy it directly from the company that's selling them. However, if you want an autographed signed copy of that, we'll work out a price for it. I have to see how much the book costs, how much shipping costs, how much me shipping it to you would cost, and maybe throw a little extra on top of it, just, the fact that, whatever. But if you're interested in that, email me, liberaldanradio@gmail.com, or just respond to whatever and let me know how to contact you, and we'll get that all worked out. And then I'll give me the opportunity to put in the pre-order and be able to get everything done. So, thank you, Robin, for hanging out with me and the Danimals. You're a Danimal too, since you're in green, but all the people are Danimals, regardless of their greenness or not, because y'all support the show, and I appreciate everything that y'all do to help the show. Remember, make sure that when I post new videos, to share them with your friends, put them on your social media feeds, like them, subscribe them, comment on them, respond to other people who comment on them, help the algorithms, because Al Gore needs more rhythm. Speaking of which, there may very well be another announcement coming up next week, hopefully soon, about t-shirts being made by my sister and her husband, my brother-in-law, and we're going to have 2 initial shirts that we're going to be selling to support the show as well. So I can't wait for that. I'm excited to show y'all what the designs look like, and we will go from there. But until then, again, if you're on Twitch, it'll be a hard out, and otherwise we'll have the regular outro. So thank you all very much. Appreciate you. And unless anything big happens, we'll see you Monday. If something big does happen, we'll do a special show, and just keep your eyes on social media. Liberal Dan Radio on Facebook, Liberal Dan Radio on Blue Sky, YouTube, Twitch, TikTok, etc. So thank you all very much. Appreciate it. Peace.
I like turtles.